So, welcome back. One of the things that I think you should know about me if you don't know by now is that I'm always here to advocate for you to have a strong business. Now, what that strength looks like in your business might look different than in somebody else's, but I'm always encouraging my clients and my audience to focus in on their best business basics in order to create a strong business. Now, what does that mean? Well, in jewelry, as with a lot of maker products, sometimes what that means is that we need you to do something fun, which is called diversify your revenue stream. Total snoozer of a phrase. It's a very traditional business concept that has the unfortunate habit of being true all the time. I've actually known and coached a number of business owners through their processes, and I can tell you that diversifying those revenue streams has almost always resulted in a stronger business that can weather the tough times a lot more easily than other businesses can. And currently, we're in a very strange economy in the United States. We've got ever rising gold prices, which are universal. It's happening all over the world. Same with silver prices. Diamond prices are doing something funky right now, and tariffs in the US have really affected people's baseline costs. And we are currently in something called a K-shaped economy, meaning that there's a segment of consumers at the top who are continuing to spend and are responsible for a lot of the spending in our economy, and that the people at the bottom have dropped out of a lot of this sort of discretionary spending. And so we're facing a slightly different landscape. And so some of you may have already felt this. Maybe there was a decline in your wholesale sales. Maybe there was a decline in your e-commerce sales, or maybe one went up so much that you didn't even notice the decline. And so today I want to talk to you a little bit more about what it looks like to create a strong business by diversifying those revenue streams. So, what does that mean to diversify your revenue stream if you're a jewelry designer or a maker? Well, primarily what it means is that you aren't just selling to stores, and you aren't just selling online, and you aren't just selling at shows, and you aren't just selling your custom work. What it likely means is that you are going to do a variety of these things. Maybe only 10% of your business will be custom, and only 20% of your business will be e-commerce, and the rest will be selling to stores. And that's okay for right now. But we might be looking at creating a different balance and a different ratio in your business so that if one part of it falters a little bit, you've got all of this other income, all of these other revenue streams to come in and help support and keep maintaining your business. Now, again, what this looks like for you individually, it can depend on a lot of different factors. It can depend on when you started your business, how long you've been in business, what position you occupy in the industry. Are you in luxury? Are you in demi-fine? Are you in costume? Are you in high-end fine? There's a lot of different ways to be in this industry. It could depend on how much time you've had in your business to build the relationships that you need in order to get into stores, or build the relationships that you need in order to sell online, or build the relationships that you need in order to sell repeatedly at shows. So sometimes this is a time factor, and you might just need more time spent in your business in any one of these avenues in order to beef up your sales. And it likely feels to you right now, as I know it's felt to a lot of my clients, that you have to do a little bit of everything. And that is actually kind of true. And I think, in my opinion, it's always been a little bit true that we've always had to do a little bit of wholesale or a little bit of retail, depending on our temperaments, depending on our work, depending on where we like to work and how we like to work and what we like to make and what our production processes are like. Different businesses, especially in the jewelry industry, can be set up very differently. Some people are making everything in-house. Some people are having everything outsourced. And both of those are valid ways to run a business, but it could be giving you some more information about which directions and which revenue streams you need to diversify. And let's address the elephant in the room. All of this has gotten trickier with the current metals market. I would say in the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of designers making some different choices that they hadn't necessarily anticipated. Opening stores for themselves and for some of their cohorts in the industry, closing stores that they already had, hiring, maybe not hiring, maybe deciding to scale back to just custom or to scale back to more bespoke items. Or other designers have decided that now's a great time to enter bridal. And I will have to tell you this from my perspective as a consultant and from my perspective as somebody who's been in the industry about 20 years. Everybody has been making very different choices depending on what they are seeing in their numbers, which brings me to another good point. Pretty much all of these decisions can and should be based on looking internally at your numbers. What are your sales telling you? What's your profit margin? Can your current profit margin even manage to go into wholesale? Are your current prices set up to do custom? Are your prices set up to target the right audience for e-commerce? Are you prepared to do a lot of shows? All of these will come with different cost factors. All of these will come with a different set of choices and ideas and different ways of marketing. And it is going to be up to you to decide which avenue you're going to take. And a lot of that I found starts by asking yourself, well, what are your numbers telling you? What do you like about your numbers right now? Because feelings are a big part of this. But also maybe what are the bad stories and what are the good stories that the numbers are telling you right now? Because there's probably something to be gleaned within there to give you a direction for your next steps. So, as I mentioned, there isn't going to be an overarching right answer that is right for everyone because everybody is coming at this from different personal places. What are your time constraints? Are you a parent? Are you caring for an aging parent? That might give you some information about which direction you might need to go into in order to continue to have your business and turn a profit. Some of you with different kinds of time constraints, maybe you're still working a job. Maybe you're going to make some other choices because you have limited time because of this job you still have. Some of you who are in this full time and you're already busy with your existing work, you might not feel like you have the time to make any of these changes or make any of these decisions or to push into these new avenues to sell through. So what I would like to do is share with you how some other designers have been making choices lately and see if any of these resonate with you. Now, again, I'm always going to tell you to go back to your finances, to do an analysis, to look at what your profit margins are, to look at what your pricing formula is, to look at your profit and loss and make a determination based on the numbers, because this really is something that needs to be answered by the financial health of your business. Now, yes, a lot of it is going to have to do with what is your vision? What is your creative vision? But there's going to need to be an intersection of that with your financial health too. So let's talk about what some other designers have been doing. So one option that I've definitely noted designers doing is if they started in trade shows within the last few years, they're just continuing with the trade shows because they are working on building those relationships and they have a plan for it to pan out and for it to create profit in their business and to create visibility. Now, notice that I said that they have a plan. I don't typically recommend trade shows overall. Especially not one, I don't recommend trade shows without a strategy in place before you even go down that road. They can be very expensive. They're very time consuming. And without a strategy, my experience has been that it doesn't necessarily yield the rewards that you would hope it would. But if you're already in it and it is working for you and you can see a path to success through them, then you might be okay staying the course on trade shows for a while. Another thing that I've seen a number of designers do, and I'll tell you, I'm sometimes mixed on this. Each designer has their own set of decisions they need to make. This is not a decision that would work for everyone. Neither is staying the course on trade shows. That's not a decision that would work for everyone. But some designers have been changing up their pricing structure to accommodate more direct to consumer, meaning they might take less of a markup if it's an item that is never going to be sold at wholesale. Now, in the past, I actually would have said, I don't think that's a good idea. But in the past, we had $14 silver prices. In the past, we had $1,400 gold prices. That was a very different market. Right now, what we're bumping up against is some sets of consumers who aren't going to spend above a certain amount. So you might be trying to meet them where their pricing resistance is. It's a very delicate balance. And again, this is not a tactic that I would recommend for everyone. It's a tactic often best used when you already have an audience in place, when you already have an active email list and you're actively promoting yourself via email and you're actively promoting your website. This might be a tactic you could take, is to have one small segment of your line that is just for direct to consumer that might be priced slightly differently than if you were going to sell it at wholesale. Again, I'm actually not going to make a judgment here, except to say that if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. Today, of course, we're facing a very different metals market and a very different economy. And for that reason, some designers might choose to take this tactic. Another tactic I've seen that I actually really love is the number of designers who are taking this as an opportunity to decide to do one-of-a-kind pieces that have no replacement costs. So if you're currently doing production, you probably have already done the math and figured, well, sure, you could sell this at today's metals prices, but what happens when you have to go to remake it for your next wholesale order? Do you need to price it for the next metals market? And the answer is actually yes, because the metals market was moving so fast there for a while that actually a number of designers may have lost money on a wholesale sale. So if you lean into this one-of-a-kind pricing, you can price it for whenever you made it, and you don't have to worry about a replacement cost for that particular piece. It also gives consumers that sensation of feeling special, that sensation of having something that nobody else has, and it gives you a more interesting way of selling when what you're selling is the artistry of what you do. It also gives you more flexibility to price, because if the price is going to be based more on the artistry and the uniqueness of what you're selling, well, there might be a little bit more flexibility to push the price up a little bit if it doesn't feel like the right price whenever you plug it into your formula. You can play around with it a little bit. But because you don't have any replacement costs, you have to worry less about what those replacement costs would be. It's a really great idea, and I'm really thrilled to see so many designers pressing into this, because I think it's going to be great for the creative vision of the industry overall to have more unique products on the market. Another tactic I have definitely seen designers doing, and to be honest, I was advocating for this a few years ago, and that is to actually shift their dollars away from trying to press into wholesale, to shift their dollars away from doing trade shows, and to take some of that money and a lot of that time and attention and to shift it into a full-on e-commerce strategy. Now, this does take time to bear fruit, especially if maybe e-commerce is something that you've ignored in the past. If e-commerce was something that was not a core part of your business before, it might not have been on your radar to do it, especially if you were getting a lot of orders from stores. But now is a great time still. Yes, still, it is a great time to turn your attention to e-commerce and really, first of all, you get to own how your work is presented. You get to own all of the customer contacts. There's nothing in between you and your customers if you're selling directly to them through e-commerce. Now, this does take, again, getting that audience in place. It can be harder if you're building this from scratch, but it is not impossible. I have absolutely seen it work. And when it works, the great news is that you increase your profit margin per piece, meaning that in a lot of cases, if you're already selling to stores, and you shift to e-commerce, you get to keep more per sale and possibly have to sell a little bit less. Like you can sell fewer pieces, but you're going to keep more of the profit per piece. And for a lot of designers I've seen, that increase in profit has led to growth and expansion in ways that maybe even the designer wasn't expecting. So this is definitely a tactic people have been taking, and it allows you far more control over things like pricing and presentation and branding. And a lot of designers have found great success in this. Again, it's not necessarily less time than going the wholesale route. It is just a shifting of your attention in a different direction. So these are a few choices that I've seen designers make. You may have made your own decision. Actually, I would love it if you dropped it in the comments, hint, hint. But all of these choices may come with a variety of increased costs. Increased financial costs, increased cost to your time, increased cost to your attention, or having to pick up a new skill and learn it. I was very, very fortunate when I had my jewelry business that I had come into my jewelry business having just been an e-commerce manager for another jewelry business. That gave me a perspective and a method and a process that I could follow in order to have my own website and manage my own website. I came into it with training. That might be a different method for you. You might actually have to learn it from the ground up. And I think that would be great, actually. One of the most wonderful things that I've discovered about being a small business owner is the extent to which we just get to keep learning all the time. And I personally find that really exciting, and I hope you do too. Another aspect to these choices, as I mentioned with a couple of them, is that shifting in any of these directions can definitely take some time to bear fruit. So, if you were pushing all in on wholesale and trying to get into stores, and now you're shifting your attention to e commerce, you'll need to give it some months to really bear fruit and to earn those sales on your website, especially if you didn't have an audience in place. If you do have an audience in place, that timeline might be a little bit shorter, but you might find yourself shifting your marketing strategy, and that's also okay. But again, it might take time to bear fruit, and so you'll need to have some patience with yourself to make any of these changes. And I also want to say, yes, it is going to take time. And I also would not let that deter you from making any of these changes. There's really no time like the present to take a good, strong look at your business, make sure that you're building the strongest possible business that you can have. It would definitely be time well spent. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe.